Welcome back to PPSW. Today we're back with another Star Wars theory at your favorite hangout place, the Space Gulag, and today we are doing what if Darth Vader had found his daughter, Leia Organa, or Leia Skywalker. Before we go any further, I now have a Discord. If you guys want to come join me and hang out with me in the official Space Gulag, link will be down below for that. Also, subscribe if you want a chance to win a free lightsaber. We're doing that giveaway still, so yeah. Go and do that at 10k. Or we're getting there. So anyways, today I'm excited to try this out. We're doing what would have happened if the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Vader, found his daughter, Leia Skywalker. This could rupture the entire story of Skywalker and even flip the original plan for the Skywalker children on its head. We'll be starting right after Luke and Leia are born on Polis Massa. Let's get straight into it. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Grand Master Yoda have decided they needed to separate the two children of Anakin Skywalker. Presuming that Anakin died on the lava bed of Mustafar, they wanted to keep the children safe and hidden as far away as they could from the Emperor. So the children were split up. Leia went with Bail Organa to the planet Alderaan, while Luke went with his aunt and uncle on the planet Tatooine. The twins were separated and the two Jedi Masters went into hiding. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader. As Vader became the Emperor's pet, not many days passed before Vader began to regret doing anything he did when he was Anakin. He longed for the days of being Anakin Skywalker, the hero of the Republic, with a wife and two children on the way, though he only knew about the one. But now he had none of that. He was in consistent pain, and that was everything he had. He was fear. Vader loathed his suit and spent most of his time in Bacta trying to heal his burnt body. It wouldn't be long before Palpatine began sending Vader on missions across the galaxy. Vader uses hate to snuff out Jedi while going across the galaxy and slaughter them mercilessly. When he fought, he never faced a Jedi that he feared. He was all-powerful. As months turned into a year, Darth Vader began being seen across the galaxy as the Emperor's right-hand man and the force of the growing Empire. Vader wasn't very peaceful when he partook on these missions. He was going to kill. But then he was drawn to an inner core world, Alderaan. He had no indication as to why he was drawn to the world, but he felt a connection to the Force. He also knew that a senator from Alderaan, Bail Organa, wasn't especially thrilled with the Emperor's plans and decision to change the Republic into the Empire. Vader saw this as a possibility to excuse himself for his trip to Alderaan. Vader took his shuttle with some elite troops to the planet Alderaan. He went into the main city of Alderaan and moved swiftly. Guided by his troops, he felt a presence in the Force. It was someone he had felt not so long ago, though Vader remembered something. When he felt that presence, he was on the command bridge outside of Coruscant. He looked up and saw the Senator's ship, so Vader presumed that it was someone that the Senator was hiding. Vader came back to the President and told his troops to move to the Senator's quarters. When he barged down a door, a woman and her child sat on the floor, startled by the action. Vader felt with the Force and searched for the presence, and then realized it was the child. Why was the Force leading him to this child? He walked towards the woman and told her to hand him the child. She stepped in front of the child, and Vader, without hesitation, threw the woman through the adjacent wall with the Force. Vader walked towards the child and knelt. He placed a hand on her, and then he was sent into a Force vision. It was clouded, but it moved from Bail to Padme to Anakin on Mustafar. Not only did he realize that he had a daughter and a son, but that Kenobi had never betrayed him. Even more so, it was the Emperor who had lied to him about the apparent death of his wife. Maybe, Vader thought, what if it was Palpatine who took Padme's life? He knew she was still alive, and with a sudden rush, Vader was back into reality. The reality that stood before him. This child was his, and that meant she was just as powerful as he could have been. He picked up the child and left with his guard. Bail Organa would eventually return to discover his daughter had been taken and that it was Vader who took her. He immediately informed the Jedi that it was Vader, and that they needed to do something about Luke. While Kenobi wanted to train the boy, Owen seemed like he was getting annoyed by Kenobi's consistent appearances near the Lars homestead. Meanwhile, Vader took the child aboard his ship. The men that came along with him were killed before Vader entered the shuttle, to keep secrecy from the Emperor. Vader ensured that no one would be aware of the child's presence. Vader decided that he would train his daughter to become more powerful than himself, to overthrow the Emperor. He took Leia back to his quarters and kept her taken care of while he waited for her to grow. Vader was ready to seek revenge on his master, and he knew he had to play the long game in order to do so. He had to do what Palpatine did to him, but for Leia he had to wait even longer until she would be ready to help Vader defeat his master. For Luke Skywalker, on the Lars farm, he wouldn't be allowed to train with Kenobi. As Kenobi tried to ask Owen and Beru for permission to train their child, they would deny him, and they would tell him to stay away from the homestead or he would be reported to the Empire. So Kenobi obeyed, and kept his distance while making sure to keep a close eye on the young Skywalker. Kenobi was consistently fearful that Vader would corrupt Leia and turn her to the dark side. If Kenobi could find where Leia was, he could possibly save her from the clutches of the dark side. Kenobi, though, had a problem. He was afraid. His emotions were out of balance because it wasn't long before that Bail informed him that he found out that Vader had lived. Kenobi was at a cantina when it happened, and he handled it poorly. He remembered Anakin on the lava banks burning. After he failed to train Anakin and he failed to kill Vader, he didn't want the children of Anakin to fall into the clutches of evil. He didn't want to fail Vader again. Years passed as Kenobi cautiously searched for the daughter of Anakin. He had no trail to her, and he knew that Vader would be training her. He wanted badly to train Luke, but so did Vader. Vader for the past couple of years had been yearning to find his son. He used Leia as a vessel to look inside of her past and discover she had a twin brother. This was all done on Alderaan, though. When Vader found this out, he realized that he could create a galaxy for his children, and for them to be at his side, much like he had promised his wife so long ago on Mustafar. He searched far and wide, killing Jedi in the process, though Vader did something he wasn't known for in canon. He took the blades of fallen Jedi. He wanted to give them to his daughter for her to train with. Leia wasn't very old, but she was beginning to show ability to use the Force, and so Vader took these brief moments to train her. He loved training her, and it reminded him a bit of training Snips. But then his memory snapped, thinking to himself, that was Anakin. I am Vader. Vader was dispatched to deal with a group of Jedi that made their presence known to him. He was going to kill the group of young Jedi without showing mercy. So he left his daughter behind and went to the planet to deal with the insurrection. On board Vader's Star Destroyer, Devastator, one of the Inquisitors stayed behind without Vader's permission. This is whenever the Empire found that they were Jedi, they sent Vader and his little minions. Though this time, one stayed behind because they felt a disturbance in the Force. The Inquisitor felt the life coming from Vader's room. This could be life or death if he were caught, but it was worth the risk. The Inquisitor entered and saw nothing, but he also heard nothing. But the brother knew that there was a life form within Vader's room. He searched and searched, and then he found a child laying deathly still in a makeshift bed. The child was breathing, but the Inquisitor wondered why Vader would have a child with him. This could be a traitorous motive by the Dark Lord. The Inquisitor believed he could rise to the ranks if he had alerted somebody. Maybe instead, he thought, raising his blade from his belt. Maybe he should kill the child. For all the suffering Vader put the Inquisitors through. The brother ignited the blade and raised it over the child, and the child awoke. Not a sound came from the child, because she didn't fear the Inquisitor. The brother found this rather ominous, so he pointed the blade and began to swing towards Leia. Before he could make contact, the blade was stopped before hitting the girl. The Inquisitor knew it was over for him. Vader moved steadily towards the Inquisitor, grabbing the blade of the Inquisitor and raising it above his head. Vader walked the Inquisitor backwards without raising his other hand. He began to choke the brother. Dropping his blade, Vader watched the life drain from the Inquisitor, and before killing him, he released him, allowing the brother to fall to the ground. And before a word was said, Vader brought his blade down, but his blade was stopped. Vader turned around to see Leia using the Force to stop him. So Vader did what was natural to him. He released his blade and stepped back to watch what his daughter would do next. Leia then slammed the blade into the Inquisitor's chest and dropped Vader's saber. Leia slumped and her father walked over to hold her. Leia was weak from her usage of the Force, but she smiled. Vader praised her for her usage of the Force, and Leia was proud of this. Vader had his ship returned to his castle in Mustafar, where he wanted to lay low for a while. It was here where Leia would grow into the Sith her father wanted her to become. Leia and Vader trained viciously. Leia was an extremely fast learner, and over the coming months she would grow into her power quite magnificently. Time was of the essence, Obi-Wan believed. Luke hadn't begun his training yet, and there was a threat out in the galaxy. He felt it. He wanted to find Leia, but he believed it was too late. He tried to consult Master Qui-Gon, but there was no response. Obi-Wan felt more alone than ever. He felt so much responsibility for what had happened to the galaxy because of his student, and now he felt he was failing the galaxy once again because he couldn't find Leia. Kenobi had been off-world more than he ever had in the last few months. He needed to find Leia. Maybe he should insist on training Luke instead. Though Leia and Luke would be equals. They would be equal combatants if he did. But would he be able to train the boy properly? Could Luke resist the darkness? The time was now to make a move for Kenobi. In the middle of the night, Kenobi went to steal Luke, but before he got to the Lars farm, he knew he couldn't do that, and fled. Though on his way out, Owen caught Kenobi, and decided it was time to report the old hermit from Tatooine to the Empire. The next day, Owen moved into town and filed a report for Obi-Wan Kenobi, Jedi Knight of the old Jedi Order. The Empire was immediately reported, and Lord Vader was first to hear of the Jedi Master's location. So Vader told his daughter to stay behind so that he could finish his battle with Kenobi. Through hyperspace, Vader found himself at Tatooine. He arrived with fury and located the person who had reported Kenobi. He found out it was Owen, a former relative of his. Vader decided that he would find Owen to locate Kenobi. It didn't take long for Vader to find the homestead where his mother was buried. This brought back terrible memories for Vader, but he did remember Padme. When he arrived, a little boy came running out of the farm and saw Vader firsthand, though Luke showed no fear towards the towering Dark Lord of the Sith. Luke called out to his uncle and aunt, which Vader found even more odd. The fact that his family had adopted a boy. Owen called Luke down and told Vader that the old hermit had been spying on their boy, Luke Skywalker. Owen expressed that he had enough of Kenobi threatening the farm because of the fact that he was a former Jedi. Vader didn't care about a single word after he heard Owen say the name Skywalker. Sure, he could duel Kenobi, but he found the other twin. Vader told Owen that he was taking the boy, but when Owen tried to deny the Dark Lord, he was struck down. When Beru came out to find what the commotion was about, a red lightsaber pierced her chest. As Vader pulled it back towards him, he walked down the stairs to find Luke. Vader used the Force to knock out the young boy as he picked him up and carried him to his personal shuttle. Vader then requested that flame troopers descend on the farm to make it look like it had been burned because of the Tusken Raiders. Vader had a grudge to pick with Kenobi, but he had both of his children, and that to him was all that mattered. He took Luke back to Mustafar and introduced him to his sister Leia. Leia was leagues ahead of her brother at this point, and though they were both young, they would rival their father in due time. Kenobi saw smoke coming from the Lars farm and made his way there. As he saw stormtroopers burning the farm, he ignited his blade in a blind rage and cut them down mercilessly. Kenobi then searched for Luke, but he was gone. Kenobi then wept. He fell to his knees. He was not a Jedi. He was not acting like it, at least. His will was shattered. A voice rang out, and it was Qui-Gon calling to his apprentice. He had told Obi-Wan to trust in Anakin. He was the chosen one. Obi-Wan didn't want to believe him. How could he be the chosen one? He was subservient to the Emperor, and his children were destined to replace him. Qui-Gon then told Obi-Wan to trust in the Force before disappearing from his life once again. Obi-Wan buried Owen and Beru, and then the stormtroopers that he had mercilessly killed. Obi-Wan returned to his hut to meditate. He had much to think on before he had made his next choice. Vader's children continued to grow as the years passed. They needed their father less and less. He had trained them well, but they were helping each other grow at this point. Both of the twins at this point were now using Lord Momin's blades. they had 2 of them, so each of them had 1. They sparred with one another, and it would be these blades that they would use when they finally went to kill their first Jedi. During 5 BBY, there were little Jedi left in the galaxy, but the Empire kept finding them, so Vader took his young children to track them down. Jedi Padawans who had survived the purge had been hiding for so long, but they accidentally gave away their position. Vader and his children went to the location. The twins were still hiding from the Empire and the Emperor, but Vader had learned how to keep them hidden by using his castle as a hideout for them until they were ready. When they found the Jedi Padawans, Luke and Leia jumped into action, both using their crimson blades and striking at the Padawans. They were no match for the twins of Skywalker. Vader looked on with pride as the Jedi fell one by one until none were left. Luke and Leia picked up the blades of the fallen Jedi and took them as trophies. As Vader took his children back to the shuttle, he was requested by the Emperor. Vader told his children that they would need to find their way back to Mustafar without him. He had to meet with the Emperor without their presence. Vader left them some credits to buy a transport. He also used this moment to test how they would do without the support of the Empire. Meanwhile, Kenobi and Yoda had regrouped. They were both on Tatooine in case of Vader's return, but he never showed. The 2 masters needed a way to get the children of Vader, but it was proving to be too difficult. There was no sign of them anywhere. While at a cantina, the newest Jedi death report came in, several young Jedi killed on a mid-rim planet. Obi-Wan and Yoda felt that the children of Skywalker could be there, so they departed immediately. Vader met with the Emperor, and it wasn't about his children. As far as Vader knew, the Emperor had no knowledge of Vader's children. Though that was true, Palpatine felt that there was a rising darkness in the Force, and asked if Vader had felt it. Vader nodded, telling his master that he was aware of the rising darkness within the Force. Palpatine told Vader that they needed to prepare for anything. Palpatine was convinced that it was Maul trying to yet again become his apprentice and serve him. Vader knew it wasn't Maul, but he did know that his children were rising in their strength, and that in a matter of time they would be able to rid the galaxy of the Emperor. Obi-Wan and Yoda landed on the mid-rim planet of Rangovinda. They felt the darkness within the Force surrounding the slaughter that had recently occurred. They kept searching for any sign of the Sith apprentices, but they never found the twins. The twins decided to murder an entire village for fun, and torture the village's children before executing them slowly and painfully. The 2 twins left the planet swiftly and headed back for their homeworld of Mustafar. Years again passed, and the Death Star was now complete. And the battle over Scarif was a success for the Rebellion, though the Rebellion was on its heels, crumbling under the might of the Empire who was on their trail. Though, when C-3PO and R2-D2 landed on Tatooine, they were immediately found by a squad of Imperial stormtroopers. The 2 droids were captured. Before they could be taken back to their ship above, Jawas got into a firefight with the stormtroopers, and they were massacred. The stormtroopers then returned to the Star Destroyer. Lord Vader would go on to see the droids, and he would find 2 droids that he had cared about for so long. One of them was one that he had built as a boy, and the other was his favorite astromech. Though for Vader, he had to decide about his goal of killing the Emperor, or killing the past. Vader without hesitation crushed the droids after cracking all the information he wanted out of them. Vader relayed information to the Death Star, which in turn made its way for Yavin 4. The rebellion was aided by the Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, but their attempts to resolve anything were futile. They were able to stop a couple inquisitors here or there, but they really weren't able to do much for the floundering rebellion. The Death Star leaped into hyperspace and looked down on Yavin 4. The rebels scrambled any troops they could to engage the enemy, but it were only a matter of time before their rebellion was squashed. The Death Star obliterated Yavin 4, killing the remaining hope for the Jedi, and the last hope for rebellion in the galaxy. With the Imperial Senate gone, there was no power left in the galaxy, other than the Emperor. Vader, though, was ready for his plan to come to fruition. His children were more powerful than he. They could kill the Emperor and rule the galaxy as father, and daughter and son. Vader was proud of his children. They were his redemption, his revenge against the man who took everything he ever loved from him. Vader would call his children and ask that they meet him at the former Jedi Temple on Coruscant. They moved swiftly and decisively to their starfighters and made their way to Coruscant. Vader arrived at the temple he had desecrated so many years beforehand, and waited for the Imperial Guard to let him pass. Palpatine let Vader in, and he moved towards the Emperor's throne room inside of the Jedi Temple to brief his master on what had occurred on Yavin 4. But this briefing would be cut short. As Palpatine rose from his seat, he was disturbed. He felt a change in the Force. His guards out front of the temple were dead, and the rising darkness was making its way for the two of them. Palpatine wasn't afraid of Maul. He knew Vader would be able to dispatch anything that Maul threw at him. But then, through the door, two twins. Palpatine was confused, but then as he saw Vader turn his attention away from the door and set his eyes on Palpatine, he understood. Palpatine then knew true fear. It was the children of Skywalker. Having been trained in the ways of the dark side since birth, they were the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and there was nothing Palpatine could do but fight for his life. Palpatine threw Vader across the room with an electric bolt that crippled the Dark Lord's armor and suit, leaving him completely defenseless. The twins then moved into attack position, flanking the elderly Sith Lord. He was no match. Their power was far greater than his, and far more powerful than Anakin before he lost to Kenobi on Mustafar. The twins clashed their blades together, cutting Palpatine down before them. The reign of the Emperor was over, but the fight was not. No Imperial guards came, but Luke moved over to his father, while Vader was weak. Luke looked at his father and killed him in cold blood by stabbing him through the chest. It wasn't cold blood, though. Luke figured out who had murdered his family before he came to Mustafar, and Luke loathed his father for doing that to Owen and Beru. Leia, though, had an issue with this. She cared for her father, so she turned on her brother and swung at him. He was ready, so he jumped away from her blade, and Luke was ready for this fight, and so he began to fight his sister. It was an elegant match of skill from the two most powerful beings in the galaxy. It wouldn't matter, though. Imperial troops would storm the throne room. Leia and Luke diverted their attention to kill the swarms of purge troopers and elite guard that were meant to protect the Emperor. While Luke was distracted, Leia took advantage and slid her lightsaber through her brother's chest. Luke gasped for air, but revenge was his only motive. He turned and shot lightning into his sister's chest, sending her across the room and knocking her out. Imperial troopers filled the room and killed Luke. They steadied themselves and awaited for Leia to awaken, so they placed handcuffs on her. When Leia got up, she was a bit woozy, but she announced that she was their heir to the throne of Emperor, though the Imperials didn't believe it. She announced that she was the daughter of Vader, and when they didn't acknowledge her or her power, she sent a wave of lightning through the room, stunning or killing anyone in its path. She then jumped out the window behind her, but before she did, she took her father's and her brother's blade and returned to Vader's castle on Mustafar. She kept her father's blade for remembrance, and she kept her brother's as a trophy. As Leia stayed on Mustafar, the galaxy fell into shambles as Imperial officers tried to seize the power gap that lay in the death of the Emperor. As this happened, a criminal underworld known as Crimson Dawn began to seize power where there was none. Darth Maul headed this threshold of power, and so Leia saw her place in the galaxy. She waited patiently, like her father had for so long. She waited until Crimson Dawn seized more power than it could handle, and she made her move. She found where Darth Maul was stationed by killing one of the crime lords of Crimson Dawn. She, from there, lured Darth Maul, and they met. It wasn't much for the beginning. There wasn't any rivalry between the two of them. Just an aging Zabrak from Dathomir and the child of the most powerful person the galaxy had ever seen. The battle was short. Maul stood no chance. A couple swings and a parry, Leia killed Maul swiftly and decisively without even blinking. Leia seized control of Crimson Dawn and used her power to begin a new era of the criminal underworld in the galaxy, falling apart. Leia would eventually find someone to have kids with, and when her children were born, she then killed the father, mercilessly. She had twins, much like her mother. Leia would do as her father did and train them in the ways of the dark side of the Force. They would become the heirs to what Crimson Dawn would eventually become, as it took control of the areas where the Empire was falling and failing. The galaxy was in shambles and would remain that way until someone seized the power. That's our video, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This one was a lot of fun. I've been yearning to do a dark side themed story for a while, and I think I really kind of got the idea across with this one. It's a dark story. I mean, there's nothing more to it. I really liked not having Luke fight Leia as a good boy. I wanted him to be a dark side user, much like his sister, and I think it turned out really well. Honestly, I'm very happy with the direction that this story took. It really was quite different, and I think it flourished because it was that way. I think it flourished because it utilized the difference in the storytelling to create something that I don't think we've really seen on this channel before, because we never had Leia serve with Vader, and we also never had Leia kill Luke. I think this was really quite cool. Again, I really wanted to stray away from what you expect without really kind of destroying the story while in the process, and so with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this story. I saw a comment the other day, and someone said, your stories are either really light or really, really dark, and this was really, really dark, and I think that's because Star Wars fits in a line that goes straight down the path. It's dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, ends on a light, right? And that's kind of how it goes. It's dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, without being one or the other, and I think with these, it goes one or the other, and that's what happened here, of course. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe if you want a chance to win a free lightsaber. Also, if you want to join the Discord, link is down below. If you want to come hang out with me, you can suggest videos there and talk to me personally. I can communicate with you better there if you guys want to talk to me more than you do in the comment section. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed. I love you all. Spread the love, and always remember, may the Force be with you.